older studies was 3 barrels, as I said, of water to 1. No water. How does Shell do this? The visualization is simple. The Shell is going to put down underground into the shale formation via borehole heaters, electrical heaters. The heaters will move up to around 600 to 800 Fahrenheit. The radiant heat will then do what nature did not do as it happened for organic matter, which made petroleum conventional. It will heat and the combustion will form, and then the second part will be production, injection, and by pressure, getting the liquid to the surface. And that is the process Shell envisions in Colorado. The good news, which again there's silence, except bloggers. I read the bloggers, and many of them have discovered shale. If you can see what they're saying, many of the bloggers out in the West nightly have a debate about this. But anyway, what you see here is a potential for a environmentally friendly extraction of shale for the first time. No surface problems, nothing on the surface, an underground refinery. And that is a change not available in 1980-81. But it has to be done by way of creating, for Shell's perception, under today's social and environmental standards, protection of water. So Shell is developing a unique technology of an ice wall around the action of heating the shale. And the ice wall that they're going to put up, and doing it experimentally now, is simply to contain liquids from going into groundwater and to protect the thermal process so that water doesn't get into the heating process. It's simple. But step by step, they're moving along that technology. Los Alamos joined the shale development technology just 3 months ago and signed an agreement with Chevron. And Chevron is going to use another unique technology not available. Chevron is going to approach the rock itself underneath, rubbleize it by explosives, and then, of course, flush it out with a critical liquid, which is CO2. In both cases, CO2 is utilized. Chevron, CO2, the gas that creates the climate change and the greenhouse gas, in the Shell case, is re-injected. The bottom line here is that the approach to shale extraction, converting it into oil in the United States, will be a technology that will contain carbon. There will be a carbon footprint that will be established to diminish the carbon emission from the process of production by way of sequestering carbon, storing it underground, putting it into aquifers, saline aquifers, and so forth. So there is no claim now that the conflict between shale oil and the environmental or the climate change crisis will have a problem. But nothing will move forward without the carbon footprint that's integrated in the technology of recovery. Now the resource, again, I go back, is in the trillions of barrels of oil. And if you compare, let's look at Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia's official reserves are about 289 billion barrels. The New York Times recently said, last week, that it had discovered what is called essentially unconventional fuel, which is the topic today. And they were looking at how to get more oil out of existing fields. And the Saudi response to that was, we too can do that. We can potentially double our reserves with great investment. The United States is the leader, by the way, in what is called ERO, enhanced oil recovery, injection of water, steam, and so forth to get more out of a field that is now mature and declining because of the pressure in the field. The Saudi upgrade of their own, it will take billions to do it, is still 1/2 of the size of Rhode Island positioned in Colorado. We're talking still about 1.23 trillion barrels of oil. The Rocky Mountains are the Saudi Arabians of oil shale. The United States has 75% of the world resource, which is about 1.8 trillion barrels. Brazil is next, and it's an interesting follow-up. As the size of the resource grows, you can see the geopolitical configuration also. China comes into this very quickly. China has announced incentives, government incentives for shale development in the last 6 weeks. We are silent again on Section 369. China has said that it will develop production incentives for shale and move that way. And then you have a whole series of interesting countries in the Middle East without oil. Morocco, Israel, and Jordan are the next shale reserve holders in the world. So it's a configuration of potential shale producers that might have an international organization, an OPEC of shale one day, a sharing of the technology and whatever. And I should add Estonia, which has been doing this first under the Soviet Union and continues to derive much of their energy from shale. Where are we with regard to the market today and investment and so forth? The price of oil will continue as the uncertain variable. And that's why the recommendations are still to look at shale with market reduction, market risk reduction. Secondly, the permitting process, much liberated from 1920 to 2005 in terms of the size of the shale. Shale was once seen in the United States as so valuable that the anti-monopoly issues in the government dominated shale. The government decided at one point that it wanted competition in shale and limited the acreage to 5,000 acres per company. We've changed that in 2005 to 25,000, in other words, in 5 different locations. But if you look at the acreage per resource, 1 million barrels of oil from oil shale per acre. There you get the idea of what acreage does. And you do your computation. The Bureau of Mines has given 3 leases, 160 acres. These are R&D leases. So we're talking about underneath an R&D lease roughly around 250, 300 million barrels. How long can shale last? Shale can last for 200. In other words, there's enough shale to sustain the United States consumption of crude oil easily through 2030, and enough there with an import, according to what I looked at, an import dependence of maybe 20% going out from 2030. One of the arguments has been foreign oil import dependence. The elements of the national security community in Washington have joined the essentially the, I would call it the alternative fuels community, the biofuels community, under the notion that we are dependent upon potentially hostile sources after 9/11, and that we could be disrupted. So the national security argument, or the energy security argument, clearly looked at foreign oil import dependency. If shale is commercialized by 2012, we can, under production from Colorado alone and from 2 basins, eliminate dependency on Middle East oil by 2020. The President wants to do it, wants to lower it by 20% by 2017. Shale production will eliminate it altogether.